Episode 260, Intent versus Impact, How Our Words Shape Our Relationships, with Amanda Lauder.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
In this episode, Heather is joined by certified sex and marriage coach Amanda Lauder for a deep dive into one of the most misunderstood relational dynamics, intent versus impact. Together, they explore why our best intentions still sometimes hurt the people we love, and how understanding the difference can transform communication, intimacy, and emotional safety in relationships. This episode is a compelling roadmap for anyone who wants healthier communication, deeper intimacy, and relationships rooted in compassion and honesty. Please enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. I have my friend and fellow colleague, Amanda Lauder, with me. Hey, Amanda, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am so good. Thanks for being here with me. Amanda has been on before. I'm going to have her give a quick introduction, and then we're going to just get started. So, Amanda, you want to give us an introduction?
Sure. I am a certified sex and marriage coach. I coach men, women, and couples to have a more intimate relationship. So we deal with intimacy in all its forms, but especially physical intimacy. So that's what I do.
Awesome. I love it. I love, it's a topic that people talk about, but yet don't talk about. And so it's great to have a resource of somebody that, I don't know, that gets your background a little bit, because that obviously puts a lens over the way that we view sexuality and the way we talk about it and the way we experience it. So I always appreciate getting your perspective here. What are we talking about today, Amanda? Where should we go?
So today we're going to talk about intent versus impact. And this is something that comes up a lot in my coaching. We talk about, like, I didn't mean to do that, or like, that's not the way that I intended it. But what we say and what we do, even if we have really good intentions, can also negatively impact those around us. And so understanding intent versus impact, what is our part to own and what is the person, like, it's kind of a two-part system. What is both people's part to own when it comes to intention versus impact, and what do we actually need to work on from both angles?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting topic because for many of us, there are so many things that we say. I mean, there's so many parts to it, right? There's like what we think we're saying and then what we actually say. And also what we meant to say is always oftentimes sometimes different from what we thought that we said too, right? And then how somebody hears it, like they're going to hear your words, but they're going to hear it through their lens and in a way that oftentimes is not what you wanted it to be either. So there's like 6 different ways for this to be a different variable for each different person. So
Absolutely.
It's such a great thing to talk about.
Yeah. So maybe let's just define intent versus impact first. So intent is what we mean to communicate or accomplish. It's our motivation. It's the heart behind our words and actions. Intent lives in our head and our heart. It's an internal experience. Now, impact is how our words or actions actually affect the other person. It's their experience, their emotional response, regardless of what we intended. And impact lives in the other person's reality. So understanding like our reality, our experience versus what their experience is, and those can be two different experiences.
And kind of tricky because in the day that we live in, there is so much talk on, well, I can only be responsible for myself. I can't be responsible for how you take anything, which is true, but that also is a great divider, right? Like if we do that and we take that to 100% truth, then we are forgetting about, to use the word that you're using, the impact that we have on other people. We influence, like the things that we say, the things that we do influence somebody else's experience. And who do you want to be? And how do you want to be? How do you want to influence somebody else's experience? So I think it's really tricky. Like, yes, on one hand, we could take it as being we are completely devoid of responsibility for anything that we do because we are only responsible for ourselves. But then where does that leave us in relationships with other people? It leads us relationship less, right? There is no, why would we even be in a relationship then?
There's no relational aspect to that. That's
Hmm.
solely so if we, let's use a really simple example. If I accidentally step on your foot, my good intentions don't make your foot hurt less. Okay. So saying I didn't mean to doesn't heal the pain. What heals is acknowledging the impact. I am so sorry that that hurt you. Taking responsibility, I should have been more careful, and changing behavior. I'll watch where I'm walking from now on. That's acknowledging not just our intentions, but sometimes the negative impact that we have on people, even when we have good intentions.
And if you think about how that's being received for the person who foot you stepped on, that changes the experience completely rather than somebody just saying, well, you shouldn't have been in the way or you were foot shouldn't have been there because that
Yes.
might be true. Like that could be reality, but it doesn't matter.
No.
It's still impactful in a negative way for them. You have the opportunity to have it be a better experience than it could have been.
And if the relationship matters to us, we do want to care about the other person's experience. Like if we don't care about that person, maybe we don't care about their experience. But if we do care about them, we need to care about their experience in regards to our relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where do we go? How do we pay attention to the impact we're having and how do we change the way that maybe we are impacting somebody's life? That was
I think we need to take responsibility for the impact. And that doesn't mean that we're bad people or that our intent doesn't matter. It just means that we're mature, that we're differentiated individuals who can hold space for someone else's experience while maintaining our own sense of self. So, in order to take responsibility for impact, first we need to listen without defending. Okay. Let someone tell you how your words or your actions affected them and resist that urge to immediately explain your intent. Just listen, right? Their experience is valid regardless of your intention.
we've
Okay.
all been there. Like I'm sitting here thinking, I've had so many conversations when somebody's trying to explain something to me and I'm not even listening to them. I'm coming up with the rebuttal in my mind, right? I'm thinking of what I'm going to say because I'm just not, I don't really care, I guess, to hear what they have to say. I just want them to understand where I'm coming from. And that's really a one-sided conversation.
Yes, yes. So when we can listen without defending, really listen, right? And give them validation for their experience, that helps build that relationality. The second thing is to acknowledge the impact. So I can see that what I said hurt you. I understand that my actions made you feel criticized. You're not admitting that you're a terrible person, you're just acknowledging their reality. So we need to acknowledge the impact that we had. We need to apologize for the impact, not the intent. Okay. Those are two separate things. So saying like, I'm sorry that my words made you feel criticized. That is different than I'm sorry I said that. Right. The first acknowledges the impact. The second suggests that you regret your intent. Now, if you do regret your intent, that's important to acknowledge as well. Right. But if like you were really coming from the best in you and it still had a negative impact on the other person, making sure you apologize for the impact is important.
Yeah, I appreciate that you separated those two because there probably are many times where we should also apologize. We can learn to navigate that and understand the differences between them if we're honest with ourselves, if we're really paying attention to, you know, where we are really coming from and what our true intent is. Because a lot of times we truly might be coming from an intentional place. It probably wouldn't be so intentional, but maybe just that's not very good, right? That's not really going to leave the stamp on that relationship that we want to leave. So I appreciate that you have separated that.
Well, I think, as coaches, one of the things that we are helping people to do is to act from a place of integrity within themselves, right? Act from the best in them rather than the worst.
Hmm.
Now, we're not going to be perfect at that. We're not going to always be our best self, but that's the goal, is to try to act from the best in us most of the time.
Hmm.
And but even when we're acting from the best in us, they can still have a negative impact on someone else. And so, realizing that those two things are different. So, like, I get a lot of my couples who are like, well, I was trying to be honest and kind, and yet they were still upset. Well, yeah, but that's because that's their experience, but you're not responsible for them being upset. You're responsible for, like, were you acting from the best in yourself? And, like, when they are upset, can you acknowledge that impact without necessarily taking responsibility for their emotions? Those are two separate things.
Yeah, and that takes some work to be able
It
to
does.
separate those things out.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. And then the fourth thing is to explore and adjust. So once you've acknowledged the impact, you can share your intent and discuss how to communicate better next time. So maybe it's like, I was really hoping to problem solve this together, but I can see how my words came across as criticism. How can I approach this differently next time? Right? That makes a difference. Like, when we can learn how to do things better, that's going to actually make the biggest difference in our relationality. Like, some people really want the apology, but without a change in behavior, apologies don't really matter a whole lot. We want to actually see a change in behavior. So when you can be curious and open to, like, how would you like me to approach these things in the future, so that it doesn't have such a negative impact on you and that we can move forward together, that's going to really help the relationship overall.
Find it really interesting that that is like asking questions like that is so hard for us sometimes. I don't know, like we feel so threatened to admit that maybe I don't know what it is, but it's difficult. Those are difficult things to voice and
Yeah.
to bring up.
Well, so many times it's our ego that gets in the way. Like, we only want to look at our intentions rather than our impact. And our ego is affected by that impact. Like, well, I didn't mean to hurt you, but, like, that's because our ego can't take that even with good intentions, we actually do have a negative impact sometimes on other people. So when we can look at that ego and be like, no, my ego can take this. What's more important, that I'm right, or that I maintain a better relationship and try to improve and do things better in the future?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Okay, so give me those four just one more time really fast.
Yeah. So it's listen without defending, acknowledge the impact, apologize for the impact, not your intent, and explore and adjust.
Love them. I feel like I need to like write those down myself and keep them in a really visible spot. Because, well, first of all, it seems very, I mean, common sense, but also not like when you hear it in those explicit words, it's like, oh yeah, like that's easy
Mhm.
for me to digest, to understand, and to see how I could clearly do that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just because it's clear doesn't make it easy.
Heavens no. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah. In fact, we like to make it really hard for whatever reason. But
We do.
okay, Amanda, anything else? I mean, we just got through this really lickety split. Anything else we want to talk about?
Well, I think we need to work on the other side of this. So, what
That's
if you the one who experienced the negative impact? Then what?
okay. Yeah. So this is where okay, this is me. I need all the help I can get here. I do not ever react in the proper way, I know. So,
Yes. Okay. So, if you're the one who experienced negative impact, you need to acknowledge both their likely good intention and examine your own thinking about why you experienced it negatively. Okay. This isn't about making their impact your fault. It's about taking ownership over your own experience and your growth.
It's the part that you actually have control over because you
Yes.
had no control over the first part, right? But you have control over what you're going to do and what you're gonna do with it.
Yes. Okay, so let me give you just kind of a funny example. So this husband came home and he was like, "Wow, the house is a disaster." And he was thinking like just, observing what's happening, right? And like, okay, we need to work on this together. Let me figure out what needs to be done. And she heard criticism. So his intention was like, okay, observation and let's tackle this together. And it negatively impacted her because she hears criticism in that, right? So she needs to acknowledge, like, okay, I realize that you were probably just saying this, but I heard criticism. So what's the part of me that hears criticism in it? What's the story that I'm telling myself that hears the criticism, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That story is so, so important. And so really getting to the heart of like, what are the stories that we tell ourselves? What are those woundings that we have where we hear those things? And really starting to acknowledge those stories and change those stories so that when our partner or someone we're in a relationship with is showing up with good intentions, it maybe doesn't impact us so negatively.
Yeah, and I know we say this a lot, but when you recognize that sort of I don't know, the way you react and you recognize that that's maybe a pattern or something that's learned, this wounds that need to be healed, we have
Yes.
a tendency to exacerbate that by being really hard on ourselves for being, like, oh, why do I do that? Like I should be past that now, sort of thing. But just looking at it with curiosity and being able to love that part of you that feels hurt, right? It's okay that I feel this way. It's not a problem. This is
There's
something
good
that just
reason
needs to
for it.
be yeah, there's something that needs to be healed inside of me, and I can take care of that. I can take care of me in that way.
Yes. Yes. Okay, the next part of this is what if you're with someone who won't acknowledge their that happens all the
It
time.
does.
Okay. So when someone's not acknowledging, it will consistently create negative impact in the relationship. Right. So we have to distinguish between someone who like genuinely doesn't know how to do this yet versus someone who consistently refuses to take responsibility because those are two different things. Right. So someone who's learning, but struggling to do it, they might get defensive initially, but calm down and maybe revisit the conversation later. They might say things like, I didn't realize how that came across. They might show willingness to try different approaches, even if imperfectly. Occasionally, they can acknowledge impact, even if it's just not consistent. And they ask questions about how they can do things better. That's how you know that, like, they're not perfect at it yet, but they're trying, right? Someone who consistently refuses, like, always turns the conversation back to their intent and makes you wrong for being hurt. They use phrases like, "Oh, you're just too sensitive," or "That's a you problem." One of my favorites is, especially with people with coaching, is, well, that's just coming from your thoughts, right? We use the model against each other, not helpful. They show no curiosity about your experience. They refuse to try different approaches and they make you feel like you're the problem every single time that you bring up impact. So you just don't get that. And that really creates problems in relationships when someone refuses to acknowledge.
Yeah, I'm thinking of another, and maybe I'm incorrect here, but it's like an apology that's always got a "but" right after it, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but"
Yes.
anyway, that's a fun one.
Yes. Okay. So how do you know when you need to work on your thoughts versus when you need just stronger boundaries? Any ideas?
Yeah, that is tricky. That's like the number one question, right? And I think this is where boundaries gets a little bit skewed. People have don't always have appropriate definitions of boundaries.
Yes. Okay, so let's just maybe define boundaries, right? It's you respond when someone does something. It's not telling them what they can and can't do, but it's how you are going to respond. That's how boundaries are appropriate, right? So you probably need to work on your thoughts when the impact feels disproportionate to what actually happened. Okay. So if you're just like, if it's just so much bigger than what actually happened, then that's probably a thought problem. Okay.
Okay. Yep. There's a part of
If
me
you,
that's like, but what if it's like it seems disproportionate, but it's because it's something that happens all the time and you're just getting fed up, right? Like
wait,
there might
let's,
feel like there could be like a little caveat there. But yes.
yes, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to work on your thoughts if you recognize a pattern from your past that's being triggered.
Okay.
If you are having strong reactions to tone or perceived meanings more than actual words, you can see their good intent, but your thought is creating a negative experience. And other people don't seem to have the same reaction to this person.
Okay. Those are good things to look at. Like you can see my eyes kind of scanning back and forth. I'm thinking of like my own personal experiences and trying to like look at them as you're speaking. So, okay, go on.
Yes. Okay. You probably need boundaries when the behavior violates your values or your safety, when you've communicated clearly and they consistently dismiss it, when the pattern is repetitive and harmful, you feel worse about yourself consistently after interactions, or the impact is affecting your mental or physical health.
Okay. And what, like, can you give us an example then of what a boundary would look like in a particular situation?
So let's just say, let's say, husband comes home from work and is like pointing out the messes. Okay. And you have communicated over and over to him, like, you know, this is really hard for me. Like, you've continued, like, it feels like criticism. I've worked on that. So I'm not consistently feeling like it's criticism, but you still keep pointing it out. And I've asked you not to, and you're continuing to do it. Right. That's when boundaries are necessary. Right? When you have actually worked on your thoughts and you've asked for changes and it's still not happening, that's when you need to put some boundaries in place.
And so in that situation, what would a boundary look like in association with that?
Like, if you make a comment about how the house is a disaster, like, I'm just going to disregard it. I'm not going to take it personally. That's a good boundary, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
like, if you like, I might respond like, well, you're welcome to clean it up, right? Or you're welcome to hire a maid. I'm not your maid. Like,
Yeah.
we need to respond in ways that protect our emotional and physical well-being without getting into the weeds and not telling them what, because they're still going to do it, right? But
Yeah.
you've made a request and they're still
Right.
not doing it. You've worked on
And
your thoughts.
I know it sounds like, as I'm listening to Amanda, like the listeners are probably like, well, yeah, that just seems like a practical thing that you would say or whatever. They might even be thinking, what's the point of even saying anything if that's, like you're just telling someone what you're going to do. And yes, the answer is yes, that's what you're doing. You're telling somebody, this is what I will do in the event that this happens again. And the reason you're doing that, number one, is you're taking care of yourself. But also, number two, I think sometimes it takes us setting a boundary and voicing it for somebody else to actually, like, to really recognize what it is that they're violating, what they are doing. So I think there's two parts there.
Yeah, but we don't have to say it out loud. We can just
Yeah.
know the boundary is for us and how we're going to respond. We don't have to like set the boundary and tell them. We can just set the boundary and know for ourselves too. Like, if like, I have worked on my thoughts around this, I have made requests, it's still not changing. Like, saying something probably isn't going to change anything. I just know what I need to do to protect myself in the situation. Then the best thing that you can. So that's what we have to do. So we have to do our own thought work first before we set boundaries, right? We have to communicate the impact clearly at least once or twice, right? And then we have to set the boundaries if they're not going to acknowledge that impact. That's really, really
So important. Okay, Amanda, you're giving me some really good things to think about just for myself. Like, it's so interesting because I know all these things and like I practice these things, but I love when I get to hear like these step-by-step directions basically on how to proceed, and ultimately, like, that's all we all want. We want some parameters, we want some guidance,
Yes.
and the
Yes.
way that it sounds coming from my mouth is gonna be very different from, how somebody else might say it, but just hearing examples and understanding how we can implement things like this in our life are so helpful in so many ways.
Like the how-to. I'm very
Yeah,
much like a practical person. I like the
yeah,
how-to. So having step-by-step directions is really
yeah.
helpful for me.
So good. Just color by number. You just give me the color by numbers, just tell me what to do, and I'm happy to do it. All right,
Yes.
Amanda, before we leave, can you tell people how they can connect with you?
Yes, my website is amandalauder.com. On there, you can see how to work with me. I have my podcast, my courses, all the good stuff. And then my Instagram is Christian Sex Coach. So you can reach out to me anytime.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being with me. I always love getting to chat with you. It's so fun. And I'm grateful to our listeners for being here with us today and hope you guys will join us again another time. Thanks, Amanda. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.